Oh, it is? Actually, I like your spirit. Go ahead.
Okay, Lot's daughters. I think at one point you said that he might have had 4 daughters.
Yes.
Because he said something about them being virgins.
Right.
Could it possibly be the same as Virgin Mary? They were betrothed to men, but they hadn't known the men that they were married to? It could have been that way?
I mean, that's a good possibility that we should think about. Yeah. But when we go to Genesis 19, when the 2 men who are God tell Lot in verse 12, after pulling Lot into the house, striking the men of Sodom with blindness, then in verse 12, and the men said unto Lot, hast thou here any besides son-in-law, and thy sons and thy daughters, and whatsoever thou hast in the city, bring them out of this place. It's the word besides. Hast thou here any besides?
Did it mean besides in the house?
Besides the 2 daughters in the house.
Okay.
Because the 2 virgin daughters were with him in the house. So do you have any here besides? And then the next thing we read, he went to his sons-in-law that married his daughters.
But when he says anyone besides them, maybe he just means, is there any other daughters in the house?
No, I think the best explanation is that he had at least 4 daughters. He had 2 who were not married. They were with him in the house. And he had at least 2, because it says sons-in-law, that were married, that were outside of his house. And so he had to go to the sons-in-law house. And it also explains why Lot lingered. Because notice the God in the form of these 2 men said that he would destroy the city, and then arise, take thy wife and thy 2 daughters which are here, lest thou be consumed in the iniquity of the city. And while he lingered, and that's a word that's translated as tarried in Habakkuk 2:3. He tarried. Why would he tarry? Now typically, he's a father-in-law. If the sons-in-law are refusing, especially when he was one as mocked to them, yeah, a father-in-law can have some love, but more than likely, it was his other daughters that were married that were staying with their husbands and were not responding to this urgent command, this urgent revelation of God to get out. And so Lot, he loved his daughters, and he realized he was their last hope. Their listening to him was their last hope. And so he wanted to stay. He wanted to keep pleading with them that finally they would leave the city. But then it says, at the end of verse 16, or all verse 16, and while he lingered, the men, and that's God again, laid hold upon his hand, and the hand represents the will, and upon the hand of his wife, her will, and upon the hand of his 2 daughters, the will of his daughters, Jehovah being merciful unto him, and they brought him forth and set him without the city. So it was God operating, moving to will and to accomplish his good pleasure in the life of Lot. And God had, in other words, God had to take special action because Lot loved his children so much. Just like so many people didn't want to leave the church because their wife didn't understand, and the wife wanted to keep the children in the church. So how can I leave? But God, being merciful, ultimately drew all of his elect out at some point.
Is there any, just because I just want to make sure that I get the truth, and I'm sure you do too. Is there anywhere in Chronicles, or, where God gives the bloodlines and...
No, not to the degree where his children are named, and especially daughters. Sometimes you'll read of sons, but you rarely read of the names of daughters and the number of daughters.
Thank you, Chris.
You're welcome.